Okay, so we are at the switch case, right?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Yes. So the main reason about the switch case in Angular is um, basically we saw ng if and ng if and then else, right? So you can achieve the same thing with ng if else, but let's say you have more than a couple of conditions, then your template start looking like clumsy, right? So in order to avoid that clumsiness, we have a switch statement. So just look at this example. We have a container element. So this is where our switch statement will start, and this is where we closed it. And now we have multiple conditions. Assume that we have three conditions: condition condition one, condition two, and condition three. And if it doesn't match any of these three conditions, then go for the default condition or the default case, right? So this one you can basically achieve using the ng if else, but only thing is you just have to add multiple if else statements. So for the first case you have to add if it doesn't match, go to the else, and then you have to put if there, and if it doesn't match, then you have to put if else, and finally else, right? So basically you'll be putting 3 to 4 if statements and then else statement, but that will make your template look clumsy. So in order to avoid that, we have a switch case directive, right? And so how can you use that in normal scenarios, right? So if you see this example, I defined a number here of type number, and I assigned to 0, and then this is my template, and in my template, so look at this example and the syntax here. I'm using this attribute, the attribute directive ng switch equal to that number, so, right? So that number is this value, and because it is a 0, it will go through all this it will go through all these switch cases regardless of how many switch cases you have, and it will try to match this value with whatever you have in these codes. Okay, if any of this switch cases matches, only that content will be displayed in the UI, right? So let's say the number equals 1, then it will match to this one, and then it will show 1 in the output. But the value is 0 here, which is not in all these 5 conditions. So it will go to the default switch statement, and then it will show this as output. Okay, so the output is this is default here. Okay, so if you this looks much cleaner, right, when compared to the ng if else statement for 5 conditions. So if I want to put these 5 conditions inside the if else cases, then my template will look very bad, and it will be difficult to understand at first glance. So in order to avoid, we can basically implement the same code using the switch directive with much cleaner template. Okay, so that's the use of the switch case directive, and and there is basically other way also, like if you see here, so I have multiple tabs. Okay, I have multiple tabs, and I'm like displaying these tabs using the ng-for. Okay, and in the ng-for, I'm basically having list of tags, tabs, and that tabs list is basically like this. Okay, title is this one, and whenever that user selects the tab one, the tab one content must be displayed in the user interface, and if user selects tab two, this content should be displayed. So, how can we basically achieve that? So first thing is we have to show the tabs. So in order to show the tabs, I just have this tabs array defined, and I loop through the tabs array, and I set the title tab dot title. So tabs dot title. So this one here. Okay, for each element, tab dot title will come here. So basically, there will be 3 tabs coming, and after that, um, in the second section, this is the first section. Okay, and in the second section, I have the ng switch statement. Okay, so why I'm using switch statement to achieve these multiple tabs here? Because whenever I click on that specific tab, I want to show that content. Okay, that content part of that uh, the tab element. Okay, this one. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the same switch statement. I'm telling the tab number here, and here I'm using the ng template, and I'm using ng for. So I think we already saw this ng for of usage, right? So in the for of, and I'm giving the list of tabs, and then I define this index I equals to index. Okay, so and I think we already saw this syntax there, and for every tab from this tabs list will go to this tab variable, and index is assigned to I, and here, so ng switch case equals to I. Okay, so basically I am having the index number as my switch case condition. So why I'm having that? Because so whenever user clicks on the first one, basically the index will be 1, right? So for whenever it becomes 1, then it will match to that number, and it will be that it will display that content tab that content from that respective element. Okay. So and then I close the template here, and then um, finally, if doesn't match any of these index numbers, let's say you clicked on some random case which is not available in the tab list, then it will show some message saying selected tab. Okay, so so let's execute this example, first example, and see, and then we'll try to execute the second one. Okay. Okay, let me remove the if example. Number equals to 0. Okay. Now if we go to 00, it is showing this is default, right? So let me change it to change the number to 1. Let me save it. So it changed to 1. It changed to 5. This is displaying 5. Okay, because for each number you change here, that specific condition will be matched, and that value will be displayed. Okay, so this is simple example, and let's try to execute this one, but I don't have this tab elements, but let's try to change it to links. Here let me change it to hyperlink, because it is complaining the tab is not a valid tag name. Let me say div here. Div and div. Again div here. Okay. Is select. Okay. Is selected. I'll tell about ng class when we start the attribute directives. Okay, this is the attribute directive ng class. Let me add active background ash that is gray color. Okay, it's working, but let me change. Let me add some space between each one and make it look like a class. btn btn. Okay, so now look at this. When no tab is selected, it is saying select a tab. So from where it is coming, if you go here, if no tab, basically tab numbers, okay, no tab number is selected, then it will go for this ng switch default case, and it is showing this content. But let's say if I click on tab 1, it is saying tab content 1. So the tab content 1 is coming from this array. Okay, whenever I click on tab 1, it is basically going to this object, and it is going to this content field, and it is displaying. So where we are displaying this content field in the HTML. Okay, so here we are displaying. Okay, this is basically the ng template used to generate this repeatedly, but we can take out this, and we can put okay, and basically put 1, and the same way we can put 2. Okay, the same way we can put 3 also. But if you put that one, then it will be difficult to get tab content, because tab content basically coming from that for loop. But that for loop, if there is no for loop, then we don't have the tab value here. So that's the reason we are using the for loop there. Okay, so let me remove this, and let me change that for loop to a simple one. Okay, so the difference between the normal for loop and this for loop, right? Yeah, here itself we have the normal for loop. So this is one type of for loop, and this is another type of for loop, right? So the main difference is, if you use this for loop, this directive, it will repeat this entire element. Okay, so it will repeat the host element, or the element where you use the for loop itself. But if you use this kind of for loop syntax, then it will not repeat this the host element itself. It will just repeat whatever in between that template tag or template reference. That's the main difference. Okay, so if we cannot use this ng for here, because let's say if I use that ng for here, then what it will do is it will basically generate the entire thing. So here we cannot use. If we use that ng for here, like this, yeah, if we use like this, then it will generate the ng template multiple times. See, it is not working. There is no error also, but let's see, inspect. Yeah, you see here 3 times that the container is generated 3 times. If for the above example, the anchor tag is generated 3 times. So for tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, it generated 3 times this for loop. But whereas this one, it is not working. So for that, we are using a different syntax. Now if you go and see, then the switch cases 0 is here, 1 is here, 2 is here. And finally, we have the default switch case here. So the default one is coming now. But if I select, let's say tab 1 here, the element will come. See? So whenever I selected tab 1, the 0th switch case is executed and it is displaying tab content 1. If I click on tab 2, it is displaying tab content 2 here after the first element. If I click on this one, it will display tab content 3 after the second one. So did you get it, or like it is confusing for you?
I get it.
I didn't get.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Okay, cool. So just try to understand the difference between this ng for syntax and this ng for, and this is actually a kind of a real-time example to display tabs inside your application, because most of the web pages not web pages, web applications, we will be seeing this kind of tabs: tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, like user profile, the personal details, social details, something like that, multiple tabs. So whenever you click on the specific tag, the content will change in the bottom. So that kind of example we have here. So this is basically this is a way where we can implement such tabbed panels. So moving on to attribute directives. The attribute directives and the structural directives, right? So structural directives, earlier we saw in this example, it was changing the DOM structure. Okay, so it was changing the DOM structure, meaning if I click on this, the DOM structure is getting changed. I mean, your HTML is getting changed, right? So it's dynamically, it is changing your HTML. So that's the reason we call them the structural directives. They change the structure of your the template. But whereas Whereas this attribute directives, right? So they don't change your structure of the DOM structure. They change only the behavior or the appearance of that particular element. Okay. So what does that mean? Let's say you have an element called P, paragraph tag, and you want to change the color, like appearance, right? The color of that color and look and feel of that paragraph tag, then you will be using a attribute directive. So ng style is one attribute directive, and the same way we have ng class. Okay, that is a another attribute directive. So attribute directives basically we use to change the appearance of that element, or basically to um, change the behavior of that behavior of that element. Okay, behavior meaning, so when you click on it or when you mouse over on it, so basically when you interact with it, it will try to be responsive. So those cases we call it behavior, and appearance is look and feel of your elements. Okay, that is the only difference. Structural directives are used to change the structure of the HTML, or like hiding something in the your template, and showing something based on user input or user interaction. Those are comes under the structural directives. Whereas attribute directives, we change the look and feel or appearance of element, or the behavior of that element, right? So for these things we use attribute directives. So let's execute this simple example and see. Let me copy this and come here. Let me remove this here. Okay, and let me paste that here. So it is complaining this border style is not present. Excuse me. Let me copy this border style variable and put it in my app component. Let me remove all this. Let me put here and let me save it. Okay, it compiled successfully. You go to our application and see here. Okay, so what styles we added in the template? We added color red, and we added font weight bold, that is bold color, bold font, and we added one more protocol, border bottom. Excuse me. So border bottom is this variable from our component, that is 1 pixel solid block, that is basically 1 pixel black color. So we see here the content is bold and the color is red, and bottom we have a border. So now we change the appearance of this element. So this element is a paragraph element. It's a paragraph element. Okay. Now look at this here. We added the padding, color, font weight, and the border bottom. Okay, border bottom was that variable, right? So that variable is dynamically replaced here to 1 pixel solid black, this one. Okay, and all these properties added in the ng style are moved to your style attribute. Okay, we don't have ng style here. Here we see only style attribute. So in the style attribute, we see all the properties added. Okay. So here in the the style attribute, we have only padding 1 rem, and we have this the attribute, right? So the attribute directive, in that attribute directive, we added all these attributes using some JSON structure, okay, JSON format. But finally, what it did is, it is basically validated my syntax and added all my properties to the style attribute here. Okay, so this is one one attribute directive. And if you go to this, there are like different syntax styles also. So this is one kind of syntax the ng style supports. And the second one is where you can have that entire JSON, the entire JSON object structure inside your component class like this, and you can just use this reference here instead of writing that entire JSON structure in template, right? This is much cleaner because you'll be having your JSON structure inside your component class, and in your template, we just use that variable name alert styles from here, so that it will be used dynamically. So this will make the template look much cleaner. Okay, so that is another way of doing it. And the second attribute directive is ng class. Okay, so just like how we manipulated the CSS styles, you can basically append or remove the style, the class names, the CSS class names from your template, right? So if you see this example, we have ng class, and we basically there will be a class attribute for your HTML by default, but we are using the ng class, right? So ng class means this is a Angular Angular class attribute. Okay, so here I'm adding two classes. Okay, the two classes are from the styles array. So this is center text class here, and this is underline here. Okay, now these two classes will be applied to this paragraph tag. Okay, so there is no difference between this one and this one because we are not doing anything. We are just adding the class names here. So we are not doing anything. But if we go little further, basically there will be another usages of the ng class coming, right? So here we are using ng class without any square brackets, but when it comes here, we are using it with the square brackets. So when you add square brackets, basically you have to give the objects, right? So array is an object here. So I'm adding warning and big, these two classes from here, warning and big, and now these styles, right? So these two styles and this one, the three styles will be applied to this paragraph tag. Okay, and there are also another uses, some other usages are like syntax styles. ng class supports us using same the square bracket syntax. So that is using mentioning an object, right? So object of your classes. So earlier case, I was showing the tabs, right? So I used this one. So what I said active here, and I said some condition here, and that's it. I used only one class, but here there are three classes. Okay, the syntax is like this. The first key name is your class name, and the value name is the condition. Okay, the condition must always return either true or false. Okay, if it is true, then this class will be added to the paragraph tag. If it is false, then this will not be added to the paragraph. Okay, so this is a hard-coded example, but if you see here, I have a flat class. The flat class is here. Okay, and when that and I am also using some variable. Okay, flat is not a true or false. Okay, flat is a variable from my Typescript class. Okay, so it must always return true or false, right? That's why I'm returning true here. So if it is true, then this flat class will be added to the paragraph tag. But if you add it false here, then this one will not be added to the paragraph tag. Okay, so this is the important syntax structure we use our day-to-day Angular projects. Okay, so let me use this syntax here and put it here, and let me copy these classes, and let me go to app component CSS, and in the CSS file our classes must be present, right? So just like the active class here, I have center text, underline, and orange, 3 classes, and I'm using all 3 classes here. So here I'm using the default attribute, and I'm adding these 2 classes using the ng class directive. Okay, let me save it and go to the browser. I can see this is coming, the some text here. Okay, so it is coming centered because of this CSS class, and it is underlined. It's not underlined. Why? Acha, okay, underlined is nothing but the border bottom they added. So it is showing the border line, right? So that is the this class, underline class, and the orange, right? So the orange is color orange. Okay, color orange is coming from the orange class. Okay, but if you see here, the ng class is not an attribute of paragraph tag. Paragraph tag is default tag, right, provided by the browsers, but it will not have ng class as an attribute. So whatever the classes are getting added, they should be added to your class attribute. Okay, that's the reason. Along with orange, we can see center text and underline. Now let's play with some other syntax styles also, right? So another one is I should use the square brackets. So whenever I use square brackets, it should not be the plain text values. That's the reason it's showing this error. Okay, I can use single quotes inside it. It is valid again. If I use single quotes, that is a valid. So you will see same output. Okay, there is no change here. But you cannot use direct values just like that. Okay, if you want to use directly like this, then this must be a variable inside your component class. Okay, you can say text, you can say text variable equals underline class. Okay, I can assign that class there, and let me take this and go here and change this here. This is valid again. What is saying? Text variable doesn't exist. Okay, I have to save this. Let me save this. Okay. Now it is showing the underline, right? So we added underline class from that variable. You see here the underline is added here, the class. Okay, so that is one way of doing it. So if you use this square brackets, then this must be a variable from the Typescript class. Now we saw this one, right? So it can be an array. So inside array, I have 2 variables, two elements. One is underline, and second one is center text. Okay, this is valid. So there is no difference between the previous output and this output, because we are again adding same set of classes here. Okay, if you see here, orange underline center text is added to the class attribute. Now let's see the third example, which is the object one. Okay. Show underlined class when underlined is to, or like let me say true here, hard coded, and show center text and let me set to true here. Okay. So now both will be added to the class attribute. So there is no difference between the previous output and this output. But let me change it to false here. Save it. Okay. So that center text is gone because the center class is not added here. If you see here, orange underlined is added, but not the center text because it is false here. Let me say this to true and let me say this false. Now what will happen? The underline
There won't be
class
any
will not be
problem.
added, but center text will be added. See here, orange and center text is added, but not the underlined one. This must be, as I said, this must be some expression, right? So you can say is underlined is centered. Okay, let me create these two variables in my application component class. Is centered equals to true, is underlined equals to false. Okay, I have, instead of direct hard coded values, I have the variables from the Typescript. So now I see, yeah, because underline is false, underline is not coming, because centered is true, value is centered. So if I change to true, so underline is coming, the text is centered here. Okay. We can let's have some button. Click me to change. Okay. So how can we handle a click event? Using the click event syntax, and let me say change me. Let me save it. Let me create that method here. And here this dot is centered equals false. This dot is underlined equals false. Let me save it. So now I can see the text is centered and bottom the underline is coming. But when I click on this one, both will go away. So text is left aligned and bottom underline is not coming, right? So because on clicking we are changing the two expressions to false. Because they are become false, here also they are becoming false. When this becomes false here, it will not add, it will basically remove this underlined and center text from this class attribute. Okay, so all good. I mean, you understood?
Yes, sir, I get it.
Okay, so you can see here also dynamically getting removed from this paragraph tag when I click on the button. Then now it become only orange. Okay, we saw this example and we saw the object example, and also we saw when you click on that basically changing the class names dynamically, right? So these are called the attribute directives. So attribute directives are used to change the appearance or add some behavior. Okay. So how can you create a custom directive? So you can create a custom directive by using the ngCli. Syntax is ng generate directive and direct name. Okay.
Or
So not,
NGGD.
yeah, the short form is ngGD and your directive name. And I created one example, the highlight directive, the name of the directive highlight. So it will basically highlight your paragraph tag or the header tag or any tag for that matter. If you just add this directive to the tag, that color of background color of that directive, that element will be changed. So it will generate this code. Okay, I removed this, but I just have to update the website. It will not add this one, so it will generate that entire code, but without this line. Okay. Now what I did is I added this line here. This is a service from Angular element reference. Basically, it will give the host element reference wherever you are using this directive. That will become the host elements. That means for paragraph tag, I'm using this one, right? So now this paragraph tag will become the host element. The host element reference will be coming to this element service reference. Okay, this using this service reference, I'm getting that paragraph tag element, and I'm changing the style to background style to yellow. Now, so wherever I use this directive, then this style will be applied automatically. So what will happen is wherever you use this directive, so it will try to execute this. It will create an instance of this one, and it will execute this constructor method. So whenever you create a directive, right, or any class, right, so class reference, it will call the constructor just to construct the class. So in these cases, it will basically call this constructor. So once you call that constructor, we are basically executing this line, which will change the background color of that element to yellow. Okay. So I added this some content also when you go through it, right? Just go through it, like why we use element reference and what is the usage of it. So all those details. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let me create a directive ng generate directive highlight. So it created two files. One is the test file, the other one is the directive file, and then it updated my app module.ts. Right. So let's go and see in app module.ts what it updated. Okay, in app module.ts, it added the highlight directive inside the declaration section. Okay, so this is the update it did. So earlier there was no highlight directive, but when we created it, it just went ahead and updated in the declaration sections of my app module. Okay, so now where is it? Yeah, here it is. So as I was saying, right, so it generated this entire structure, but without this this line. So now what we have to do is we have to just copy these pieces. We have to inject the element reference. It is saying it is not found. So let me say control space. Now it is suggesting. Let me click on enter. Now it is added here. And then let me take this line and put it here. Perfect. Our directive is ready. Now let's go to our app component.ts. Let me remove this. Let me remove this also. Let me remove this template and let me add one paragraph tag and hello world. So here we have to add the attribute. Now we added it. Let me save it. Let me go here and see the background color is changed to yellow. Okay. Now we did not add the style attribute, right? So it is saying style background color yellow, but we did not add this. So from where it is coming, if you go to this directive, here using the native element, we are setting the background color to yellow, right? So whenever it is setting, basically it is adding this background color CSS property and setting this value to yellow. That's the reason it becoming yellow. Now all good, but we have only one element. So let me add one more element called div. Okay, this is different than the paragraph tag, and let me say hello. This is a div element. And let me copy the same directive and paste it here. And let me save it. Okay. So for the div element also, it added background color yellow. Okay. And you can see the directives displaying here, right? So app highlight. So it is showing that directive here, and whatever logic we implemented in this directive is executed and changed the appearance of the element.
So
Right?
what if we wanna change the different color?
No, I didn't get. Can you say a little louder?
Since we are calling it the both tag, it's taking the both element as the native element and giving the same color. What if we want to give different colors? So how will we do that?
Okay, different colors. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so in that cases, what you can do is you can take input from the directive. Okay, so something like this. There is one decorator called input. Okay, then here you can say some name. Okay, color and color of type string. Then instead of hard coding this to yellow, then add this dot color. Okay, from where you will be passing this color variable, that is from this template. So here what you can do, color. See, the color is getting displayed here because we added as input in the directive. So now I can say red here. But as I said, when we are using these brackets, then it cannot be value directly. So for that, we can basically remove the brackets and assign color equal to red. Color equal to green. Let me save it. Did I add correct one? Yeah. Color. Okay, I think we should change it from the constructor to some other method, like some life cycle method. because whenever it is getting instantiated, this color will be null. So I think that's the reason it is assigning null. But then we are sending color value after it is initialized. So on init, and on init will basically implement the ng on init method. So as we discussed, right, the ng on init method will be called once the directive or component is initialized. Now let's go here and change to put in single quotes. So now it is coming. So let me change it to red. Okay, so now you have the same directive, but it is taken different values, and based on the value they are passing, the color is changed. But I think if you have one variable, I think directly you can assign like this, if I remember correctly. Or we have to give the same name here. Let me change here. Pilot. Yeah, I think this is the correct one. Yeah, perfect. So if you have, if you give the same name as variable name, then in the template, you don't have to give color as a separate value. Earlier we gave this one space color equal to red, right? So that is like two attributes. So instead of that, basically you can give the same name as your attribute name. Then to the attribute itself, you can assign some value. This is a bit simpler than the previous one. Okay, yeah. So yeah, this is changing the appearance using custom directive. And another way, basically what we talked about the behavior, right? Okay. So in order to add behavior using the directives, what you can do is you can make use of the same directive we created, and let me add these methods here. So all I did is I added this host listener decorator. So this is a method decorator because it is on top of the method, and in that method decorator I'm giving mouse enter as a event name. That means when mouse entered, then this method will be called, and when mouse left, this method will be called. Okay, these two are method decorators. Okay, and this host listener, what it does is it will check for this event, and when that event is occurred in the browser, then it will call this method. Okay, and only these two events will be applied to the element where you added this directive. Okay, it will not work for other elements, because wherever you didn't add this directive, it will not work. Okay, so now the color will be changed when we move mouse. So here, and so whenever I'm hovering the mouse, just observe here, it is adding some style change in this style attribute. Okay, you see, background color to yellow, and it is gone when I just moved out. The same way, the above one also, first one. Okay, basically this is the behavior we are adding. Earlier we added appearance, but this is a behavior. So behavior is happened when some event is occurred. Like it can be click, or it can be mouse movement, or it can be drag and drop. So those situations we call it as a behavior. Okay, so this is the same example we just did here. So any questions? I think we are 1 hour almost.
Fine.
Okay, just execute this example and try to understand what we did, because you might forget these things because these are very
Absolutely
dry
correct.
syntaxes.